To go. Welcome councillors and staff, media and those joining us online to the Resource Management Committee meeting of the 6th of May 2025. I note Francois online here. Have an apology from Brett Cummings today's meeting. I'll move that. Be seconded by Councillor McIntyre. All in favour? All right. Declarations of interest. If anyone's got any declarations of interest, bring them up as we go through the meeting. We've got no public forum, petition or deputation today. So we'll just go to the next item, item 5, which is confirmation of the minutes of the Resource Management Committee meeting on the 6th of May 2025. And the recommendations of the council, first of all, is there any corrections to that? No corrections. The recommendation is that committee resolves to confirm the minutes of the Resource Management Committee meeting held on the 6th of May 2025 are a true and correct record. Someone like to move that, please? Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Cole. Councillor Campbell, second. All in favour? That's carried. Next item on the agenda the sheet is the actions list on page 11. And we have on that first one is to determine the timelines for the review and update of the flood protection law. So that's ongoing. Peter Miller, do you want to speak to that? No, it'll be it's Joe. Thank you.
Yes, so the flood protection bylaw is mostly ready to go, but what we're waiting on is the field work that's happening in Westport. So that will help refine the proposed setbacks that would go into the bylaw. So that's still ongoing at this stage.
Okay. The second item is, do you want to speak to that one too, Joe?
Speak to that one.
Yep.
So that one's about the delegations for us to do mining operation consents on behalf of Western District Council. We have found the deed and reviewed it, and we've also started discussions with Western District Council about whether they would actually like to revoke their delegations, and we would welcome them.
Item 3, that's ongoing as well. Would you like to speak to that one too, Joe?
That one's Shanti.
That's the mayor, yes.
Sorry, Shanti. Yep.
Request from the Resource Management Committee to undertake some science reporting on Lake Community. We had it scheduled for July. We've also got our annual lakes report coming in July.
Great. And the last one, back to you, Joe.
Yep. So this is about the discussions that have been going on about the alluvial gold miners' consents. The request was that we arrange a workshop. What we're doing at the moment is we are working through identifying some standard consent conditions and how we might utilise those into the future. And we're also working on updating our forms and providing some guidance, hopefully. So the intention is that we will bring a paper to the July council meeting that proposes an engagement plan and introduces most of those things. That's the plan.
No, that's great. I believe that needs to happen, sooner than later, to allow resource exchange to happen in a timely manner. So I look forward to that. So is there any questions regarding just the action list, please?
I just had a phone call from somebody concerning a mine operating at Mary Creek. Council turned up last week and shut the mine down. There's about 6 people out of a job. Now, this is a resource consent issue. There was a consent there. There is a current consent that's in the process of being transferred, but it's been shut down in the meantime. I'm getting a lot of stories like this.
Mary Creek Road.
Yes.
Anyone like to speak on that? Or?
Yeah, if I could answer, Councillor Birchfield, you've been given incorrect information. There is no consent for that location. At this time, there is a consent application that is in process. But as far as we know, and I am potentially speaking of underprivileged here because we haven't confirmed, we've only just done the initial looking, but it looks like there has been mining happening without a consent, which is why there's been a verbal abatement notice at this stage while we do the final work and decide what happens next.
Yeah, it's different to my information. So we'll just both have to go and do our
And do our homework, yeah.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is, any further questions on those items? So the recommendation is that the committee receives resolves to receive the report and the information noted. Moving for that, please. Thanks, Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. All in favour? Against? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is the Chair's report, and I've got a brief Chair's report. And that is Council looks forward to the release of the 3-year State of Environment report that staff are preparing for release for the whole of the West Coast, and the plan to do a community roadshow, and acknowledge the work that staff are doing and ongoing discussions with Patini Ngā Tahu with the gold mining sector on making gold mining and other resource consents more easy to navigate. Someone like to move the Chair's report be received. Thanks, Councillor Ewan, seconded by Councillor Cole. In favour? Thank you. Right, the next item on the list is report 8.1, and that's the planning and TPP report. So, Joe, you can speak to that. Thanks. And that's on page 13 of our agenda papers.
But you had it. Just a quick update really on what's happening in the planning space. We've been working on the air plan review, developing some discussion documents on issues and options. So that's the aim, to provide a bit of a summary on options that we could put into the plan. The question is going to be whether or not we put them out for consultation before or after the local government election at this stage. But that's what we're working on in the air plan. The coastal plan is moving slowly. However, that's been sort of waiting for updates to the coastal policy statement. So in many ways, that's going to wait until we get further information before we move that one on. So consultation on that one will definitely be post the local government election.
Sorry, can I just comment
Yep.
there that the announcement of the government last week and the consultation and submissions is seeking on national instruments under the RMA does include the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement, and there are forecasting some changes into that, which will then in turn get us to rethink, which is fine, no problem, our coastal plan. So we potentially need that to go through and find out where that's going, so we don't do the coastal plan stuff twice. Thank you.
Yep.
So I might as well just build off what Daryl has just said, that yes, we received all of the initial information of the first direction package, came out last week. We will do a review of that and provide you with an update at the July Resource Management Committee. We will provide advice on where we think submissions may be required. In the first instance, we'll follow the Te Uru Kahika direction, but there may be some points where the West Coast Regional Council wants to differentiate ourselves. But at this stage, the staff have only just started looking at all of the information that came out last week. So we will get back to you. Submissions aren't due until the 27th of July anyway. So we will keep you posted on that one as we do the work. The other information there, we supported the Te Uru Kahika submission about the wastewater performance standards. The big thing around that one that's interesting is the lack of local based solutions. It's quite a strong national direction. And so I think one of the things that we want to see is more ability to see a little bit of flexibility around some of the local based solutions, and that would also support the requirements of iwi and hapu in the area. There's some concerns around some of the limits that they've set around open ocean and also nitrogen limits. They're actually more lenient than what they've currently got. So we've also been a part of that submission. We have now done, while it says in the report that we had done the submission on the Westland District Council, last week we also did the submissions on the Buller and the Grey District Council long-term plans. You received those and had an opportunity to provide feedback before we sent them in. Also noting that we have taken up the opportunity to say that we would like to submit in person, and we'll be inviting the relevant councillors from each district to join us to attend that. As we get the information on that, we will keep you posted. We missed the opportunity to submit on the Westland District Council long-term plan because the date and time they gave us clashed with other things. So unfortunately, we were unable to do that
So sorry, did we just, that's in person?
in person.
Yeah, we
still
did
put in the written,
yeah,
we put
yeah.
in the written submission. We just weren't able to do the verbal. The total mobility system update, this does actually say we were aiming to have the testing completed by 31st of May. That's been pushed out. There's been a few things going on around that. So now we're aiming for the middle of June. And then once that's done, we will be printing all of the cards and sending them out. So that's still an ongoing piece of work that we will continue to update you on. Bailey Bridges, you will see in there that it was a letter sent on behalf of the Regional Transport Committee and a response that we got from NZTA. At this stage, we've had a request from Councillor Ewan as the chair of the Regional Transport Committee that we start to seek a meeting with NZTA on that matter.
Just on, Mr. Chairman, we've got a meeting in Christchurch this month with the regional sector, so we'll bring it up there again.
So that was really just to keep you up to date as the council on that. And TTPP at this stage is, we are still awaiting the recommendations report that's due in August. So that is mostly fairly quiet.
Right, any questions of Joe regarding that report? Alan?
Page 15. The bottom bullet point under the points on Western District Council. What are you submitting to the council on that one? It says here, Western Regional Council wishes to see resources and budget committed to a master planning project for the south side of the Franz Joseph as per future management of the Waiho report. So what are you submitting there?
So that's pretty much what we said, because we felt that what they were putting in the long-term plan wasn't enough for Franz Joseph, given the dangers down there of the Waiho River and the need to plan for, once we've built the flood wall, it's still only supposed to have a 10-year life. So they need to do some master planning around what to do with the south side of Franz Joseph for future reference.
So you're still pushing that river flat to be abandoned.
We're pushing for them to do the master planning around that.
That's what you want, though. You want everyone moved out.
That's not this council, Councillor Birchfield. That's not Councillor Birchfield. That's not this council's position. The council's position here is to maintain the flood walls. It is up to the Western District Council to do any master planning around that. Our role is to provide flood banks as necessary.
Definitely agree. You look at your long-term plan. That's what's in there. You read it. Read your own plan. You're planning to move the people out.
That was a recommendation, not by this council, by the TAG group that actually gave out, and that's been well circulated and accepted by the Western District Council there. Darryl, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would actually, despite the fact that we're building, we've now completed the north side banks and we're about to start construction on the south side. The fact of the matter is that the Waiho River is still continuing to erode in the reach below the bridge at a metre or plus a year. And every year that goes by, it diminishes the protection of those banks to the point where it's going to pose a risk, despite the work we've done on the banks on the north side to the town. We cannot continue to raise those banks ad infinitum forever, because already the bed of that river is well above the town, and it's posing significant risk. We have to give the river some room for all of that sediment that's coming out of the Kalari and out of the main stem below the glacier to move through the system.
The easiest way would be to knock a hole in the Waiho Loop and let it go down the middle there, rather than destroy all that farmland.
Mr. Chairman, that was looked at by the technical advisory group and dismissed as an option as not being feasible.
I haven't got confidence in
Councillor Ewan?
Mr. Chairman, my recollection of the meeting was pretty clear. there was some insistence and from the Mayor Lass that she wanted to take the lead on this. And so she's the party rightfully that is taking the lead and with no ambiguity. So the ball's in their court for the end plan. We're doing the walls.
That's correct, councillor. And our position is only to do the wards on behalf of the rating districts, and Franz Joseph is a rating district, and that has a rating district committee that decides on the amount of work that's going. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Campbell.
The biggest problem is there is no funding to buy them people out. So it's sort of a stalemate until there's a solution, really, isn't it?
That's right, they're gonna wash them out to sea without any compensation.
So is that the district council's responsibility?
I mean, we have lobbied the government on about buying out, but it's been quite clear from this particular government, there is no money for that at the moment. So, I mean, I'll just have to wait and see what actually happens. But in the interim, there was a plan to actually protect and hold the line as long as it can. Darryl, do you want to speak again?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to reinforce the responsibility of Western District Council because at a previous joint committee, the Mayor of Westland absolutely acknowledged, and it's in the minutes, that Western District Council were responsible for the master planning on the south side, and that was minuted in the joint committee, and that was said publicly to that joint committee.
Any further questions or comments regarding the report from Joe's given? If that's the case, the recommendation that council resolved to receive the report, I'm happy to move. Jackie, you're moving that. Seconded by myself. All in favour, say aye. Against? That's carried. On to the next item, and that is on page 21, and it's the Environmental Science Quarterly Report. And thanks. Shanti, for leading on this.
Sure. Yeah. So the purpose of this report is just to give you an update on the operational work our teams take, just hydrology and environmental quality. I've given a go at giving you a high level summary on the first page, which was a bit of a request from the RMC last time. The report talks about the River Lakes estuary work we do, the conclusion of our contact wreck sampling, which shows, we have a few exceedances of E. coli in those test results, but nearly all of those come after rainfall, which is not unexpected, and they are sites that we're well aware of as well. Air quality monitoring, so we've started some spatial sampling in Hokitika with 15 sites, and we've got a continuous air monitoring device now at the high school at Greymouth, so that's a great machine to have to give us some better data for Greymouth. We've also got some innovation happening in the hydro space and some collaboration with other regional councils, which has been really great. Councillor Birchfield, in the past, you asked about whether we had a handheld radar. So you'll see in the report there that the team have one of those now, which is really great for high flow events when the river's in flood. Yeah, happy to answer any questions if there's anything specific.
I need to have any results back from the cockles.
Not yet. Yeah, no, that will be interesting though. That estuary report should be with you in August or September, and we'll give an overview of all 8 sites, including the E. coli. And
Further questions?
Just a quick one. Did get someone querying you're testing the air in Hokitika? Can you explain behind that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a requirement of the National Policy Statement for Air Quality. And with our review of the air plan as well, we're required to gather data and establish a baseline of whether there's a problem. We did one round in Hokitika last year, and this is a repeat because some of the readings were high. We did that in Westport as well. The spatial air monitoring that we do, it's not calibrated, and some of the bad results can be things like salt air. So we did extra monitoring in Westport and found that a lot of that was other particles. It wasn't coal. So we've taken away the monitoring from Westport and moved it down to grey, where we had some exceedances last year. If we have continuous exceedances of the PM10 across the national bottom line, then we have to gazette an airshed, which is what's happened in Reefton for some time. And you have to have at least 5 years of no exceedances before you can move away from monitoring that site.
Councillor Ewan?
And the sea shed thing with Reefton, the other towns was covered in the previous workshop.
Was too. I'd like to comment, look, it's on page 30. Shanti, you've gone about the New Zealand Hydrology Society. It was awesome to see 2 staff, Ruben and Pete, winning the best presentation at that Hydraulic Society conference, and are sponsored to go to Australia and the Hydrology Association conference in Tasmania, you know.
Yeah.
So that's just awesome. I know it's being hosted here this year as well.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to comment on that or.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, so it's a
information on.
fantastic result. Awesome work, and just highlights how well the West Coast is doing in this space to be recognised nationally and then go to an international conference as well. That conference in Tasmania has been and gone, and they presented an excellent presentation there. We got lots of really good feedback on that as well. Yeah, and so the team will be hosting the national conference on the West Coast. I believe it's at the end of this year. I'll have to double check with Samuel on that one. But it'll be great to have some hydrologists from around the country on the coast and having a look at some of our rivers.
The other comment I had was just great to see the safety improvements happening, ongoing safety improvements happening by the staff, which have sort of shown us there. That's great. You know, the monitoring sites are essential for our flood early warning defence system. And also pleased to see staff proactive in seeking government funding for the relocation of the Cronodon repeater and installation of redundant water level monitoring devices with satellite communication. That's great. Another great work including the local data ingestion point at the CDM, Westport, and procurement of the Spark 4G SIM cards. That's essential. They have that data carrying, you know, right through. I note this criticism of staffing levels, etc., but we've got a dedicated team here that are performing essential services for our community. So great work and a good report, Shanti. Any other comments on that?
Very so pleased they did the one at the Kerr, because in high flood, that river is a killer.
Yep.
So pleased that just go on this.
Tacticals for that. Really good. Any further comments?
No, I've got no questions, but I'll be happy to move the report.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Councillor Cole, all in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Good.
Thanks, Shadi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shanti. The next item, I believe, is general business. Any further, any general business?
Just
Councillor
one from me, Mr. Chairman. Green waste. There's been some issues with green waste in recent times. With the TTPP, is there a permitted activity for local bodies to deposit green waste where they feel they can deposit it? Because at the moment, it seems to be an implied national permission to do it, but if it's not legally statutory done under a plan, it is not legal. So I just want to clarify, we made provisions in this new one district plan for green waste as a permitted activity to be dipped down banks or dead end roads and so on.
Mr. Chairman, we will need to check that, but that would be highly, highly irregular, and I doubt it. But we will, Joe will just confirm what the rule status is around green waste in the TTPP and fly tipping and all those sorts of things. But I wonder if Shanti might want to comment on this matter as well, in terms of from a biosecurity point of view and what we're seeing with our team on this.
Yeah, it's usually covered under bylaws.
No, in terms of what we're experiencing, in terms of
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more of it, and it is concerning, and it's not.
It's not surprising because this council made a very good submission to the local councils.
Yeah.
And you know, if one party advocating that people must go and tip their dump waste, green waste, that they dump at $512 a tonne, and the local body who's enforcing that is having a free lunch and dumping it where they please, well, what's going to happen with the people with the $512? It's not going to happen. So therefore, that's the problem.
Chairman, we'll just take an action on Joe, just to email councillors with what the rule framework is on that matter. Just, as an action, thanks.
Right, any further general business? If not, I'll move that we actually, just put the meeting in abeyance and we carry on the public excluded part after the meeting of council. And do the two. Are you happy with that, Jackie? Okay. Thank you. So we'll close that part of the meeting and, we'll have the, public excluded part after, which we've done the post after council meeting. I'll have a second for that, please. Councillor McIntyre, all in favour? Against, it's carried. Right. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Enjoying already.
See you later, Jackie.
Now into the meeting of council. Okay. So welcome everyone to the meeting of council on the 3rd of June 2025. Welcome to all the staff, those joining online. Francois, are you still there?
He's still there.
Yep. And the media and everyone else. Apologies. I got an apology here from Councillor Cummings. I'd like to move that. Second by Councillor Ewan. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Declarations of interest. Declaration of interest. No public forum, petitions or deputations today. So if that's the case, we'll move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes, the council minute of the 6th of May 2025. That's on page 1 of your papers. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
On page 11, as a typo, please, Joseph Kibbles.
Page 11. Noted.
Picky.
Yeah.
You got it.
Good spotting. Any further corrections? The recommendation is that council resolves to confirm that the minutes of the council meeting held on 6th of May 2025 are a true and correct record. Would someone like to move? Thanks, Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Cole. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Action list on page 16.
Just some queries on the minutes.
I don't think we do have any queries on the minute.
I just want to passion with
Yep.
issues. I see here on page 4 regarding the iwi sign-off. That's sort of confirming that iwi sign-off remains a decision for consent staff.
Is it, can you pick it?
Iwi sign-off requirements on page 4.
Remains a, that's as it always has been.
It's the final decision is with
Council.
consent. Thank you. So it's actually not a statutory sign-off or an effective vote. Thank you.
Okay. On to the actions list on page 16. Right. First one is to email Councillor Cummings those costs. So that Joe, is it both Peter Muller? It's yours. Yep.
Relatively sort of so we've got that forecast that we did for the last services meeting. I was going to use that as part of the process of explaining to Councillor Cummings exactly what benefits we're getting from the child services on the chart. So it was the dollar value piece.
Yep.
And then there will be probably an example as it talks about here around of taking on staff internally to do the franchise work. Supporting all that sort of thing. So I was going to use that file and costs around because we're getting savings from doing that in-house versus external consultant. So that would be done for.
Yeah, I did. So we talked about this action at the last meeting, and Peter did say around wanting to present that picture up to 30 June. And I do recall councillor Cumming accepting that as a timeframe on that action. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, that'll be good to have. That's been on the action list for quite some time, so that'll be good. Items 2 and items 3 are completed. So we'll remove those. So the recommendation is to receive the report and information noted. Someone like to move that, please? Yep, councillor Cole. Yep. Councillor Ewan seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Now, the next item on the agenda is the West Coast Emergency Management. Oh, hang on. No, it isn't. We've got the chair's report. Right. Thank you, Deanne. I mean, the bits of paper. We have got Mayor Jamie Klein joining us for the next item. So the chair's report for June 2025. The past month has seen staff busy completing the annual plan, which council will adopt on June the 24th. Council will not need to consult on the plan as there is no significant or material change from the plan of work or budget as proposed in year 2 of the long-term plan 2024 to 2034, which sees council returning to surplus in year 4 of the LTP. Today, council decided on including the new welfare and recovery role in the emergency management team. Mayor Jamie Klein, Chair of the West Coast Emergency Management Committee, will speak to us shortly. The committee met last Friday and we were informed of the excellent work and work plans that Claire and the staff are doing preparing for a future event. The work is professional and appreciated. Later in the public excluded, we will consider and confirm the appointment of the second community representative to the Westport Rating District Joint Committee, which we confirmed later on in public, following that public excluding part of the meeting. Last Tuesday, the AF8 Roadshow was presented in Greymouth and was well received with over 300 people attending. This is a great collaboration between West Coast Regional Council Emergency Management staff and the University of Otago. I note the ongoing flood protection work for our communities with 2 tenders for stage 2, French South Side let, and in Westport the next stage of protection at Avery is being let, and ongoing geotechnical investigations and access and consenting taking place. Also acknowledge the release of the government's review and request for submissions on the National Direction Instruments under the Resource Management Act. Also wish to thank staff for the quality, financial and departmental reports we're receiving. The council papers are of excellent quality. That's my chair's report. Someone like to move the report to be received? Thank you. Absolutely. McIntyre, Councillor Campbell. Any questions? No. Right. Is Jamie here yet?
He's about two minutes away. He's just going through Graham.
Oh, okay. I'd really like Jamie to be here to speak to that. So what we might do, we might move on to the next item. That's all right, which is.
And they want to go in this specific order.
Hey.
They want to go in this specific order.
Right. Well, if we could just hang fire for Jamie for a second, I think it's important. The next item is the West Coast Emergency Management Responsibilities and Resources. And Claire, if we just take a couple of minutes, we are running ahead of schedule here, so we'll just take breathers for a couple of seconds till Jamie arrives. That'd be great.
I like your optimism, Claire. If it's in Graham, he's going to be here in a couple of minutes.
I was just speaking to him, so he was.
Well, those traffic lights has to get through council.
Did the AF8 from everything in Westport?
We've had it there in the past, but not the last couple of weeks. No, it was only Graham, wasn't it?
Graham and
No, it was down south as well. You go to the AF8, Andy? Yeah.
No,
Well received.
I did have one.
Oh, Arnold. Yep.
It was a good turnout in Grey up here.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Support from the audience about Bailey Bridges.
Yeah.
Done.
All right.
I'm gonna meet them.
Never say never. Never say never.
Well, if we buy them.
Welcome, Jamie. Apologies. No, it's all right. We're actually running a bit ahead schedule, which is a bit unusual, so.
Unprecedented for my council, that's for sure.
So yeah, so we're just going on to item 8.1, which is the emergency management responsibles and resourcing. So it's yourself, Claire, and yourself. So you guys want to present? That'd be really good.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. I'll just quickly take you through the main points of the paper and appreciate that Mayor Klein, who is our Joint Committee Chair for West Coast Emergency Management, is also here in support of the report. The report addresses two aspects. The first is our roles and responsibilities under the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act for delivering emergency management on the coast. The second aspect of the report is around the context behind our proposal to increase the team by 1 FTE to employ a welfare and recovery resource. So just in terms of those two aspects, in the report, I talk about the roles and responsibilities under the emergency management legislation, particularly sections 12 and section 17. Section 17 I have put in as an appendix 1 to the report. It talks about responding to and managing the adverse effects of emergencies, planning and carrying out recovery activities, and monitoring and reporting on compliance with the Act. I've also put in the report the context behind the partnership agreement that was signed by the Joint Committee in May 2022. In that, it also talks about the roles that we have as our joint committee, which is across the Regional Council and the 3 district councils. Further to that, there are a couple of sections that talk about the context behind our proposal to appoint a welfare and recovery position. So this is an initiative that came out of the review to the Westport floods, which happened in July 2021. There was a review of emergency management at the time, which made 40 recommendations. One of those recommendations, recommendation 20, was around increasing the capacity of the team to include 2 additional positions, a welfare position and a recovery position. At that time, there was a discussion around the LTP for the Regional Council, and it was proposed that those 2 positions be collapsed into 1 FT as opposed to 2. I'd also put in the report the references in the Act around our responsibility around both welfare and recovery, and I've put them in the report section 17.1 and sections 17.1F. So those 2 sections in the Act talk about our requirement to have welfare and recovery. And those are the main aspects that I wanted to raise. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Claire. Jamie, would you like to, we had our emergency management meeting on Friday. It was a really good meeting and a lot of good information there. So do you want to speak?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity, councillors. I know it's slightly unusual having another mayor addressing your council, but I'm here wearing 2 hats today, I think, both as Mayor of Buller, but also as chair of the Joint Committee. So certainly thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I really want to speak in support of this paper, and I think it's to give hopefully you as councillors some comfort that that of what the role is and the importance of it, particularly I think in the West Coast context, and the wisdom of the joint committee for approving it in the first place, and then it flying through into your long-term plan. So my understanding is you're not talking about a new addition to your plan. It's already in your long-term plan. So the discussion has been around whether or not it stays, I understand, sir. So, you know, emergency management is often associated just with sirens and the sandbags and the response. And I think that's the bit that we all relate to, and it's quite intuitive. You know, we step up to help our communities when there's an earthquake or there's a flood or something happening. But I think the real measure of preparedness, and I think Borat and Westport, lies in how you actually recover, and the recovery is by far more complex. So today I was hoping to cover quickly around disaster recovery planning, why it's essential, reflect a little bit on what came out of the Westport experience, and the lasting effect that had on people and the community. Claire's talked a little bit about the statutory context, and there is no doubt about that. Recovery is not optional under the CDM Act. Our responsibilities are clear. We have to reduce, be ready, respond, and recover. The Act defines recovery quite broadly as the coordinated efforts and processes used to bring about the immediate, medium-term, and long-term holistic regeneration of a community following an emergency. And I think the word holistic is what really bore out in Westport being critical. It's not just about the roads and the infrastructure. It's about the lives, livelihoods, and the confidence of a community post-disaster, and in some regard, restoring hope. So statutory obligations aside, I think it's the lived experience of Westport that was a real West Coast context for you to consider. So I'm sure you all know Westport was hit twice in 2021, July, and then again in February 22, over 400 homes damaged, people evacuated, and lots of infrastructure damage as well. But of course, recovery didn't end when the water receded, and recovery involved complex insurance delays, still dealing with some impact on property value loss. Certainly police reported increasing levels of family harm through people being forced to live in places where they weren't able to separate things when they were running their lives. And obviously, community also facing the rising costs of protection in order to move on as a community, as the flood defences that you guys are able to roll out have to be paid for. What was huge in Westport was the psychosocial reality. So that prolonged uncertainty and anxiety and depression was really widespread. Schools struggling to support kids to attend school because of their disrupted home environments, those kind of things. And some of those impacts went on for years. I still get, literally last week, we had a pretty rough forecast. I would have had 2 or 3 people contact me directly and said, what am I hearing? Are the officials showing any concern that we're in for another event, sort of thing? So that's really top of mind for people in the community. Recovery also focuses on economic factors. And so, local businesses were impacted, and probably the one I know best is actually council itself, where I think around 8 or 9 of our staff actually were flooded at home and had to navigate that, dealing with their own possessions and insurance things, whilst obviously assisting with council and the emergency management response itself. But the broader context around damage to houses, created a sort of a mini housing shortage. So then it started impacting on other businesses or projects that were businesses who weren't necessarily affected by the flood themselves became affected because the project that they were hoping to deliver in that next quarter or next 12 months was put on hold because there was nowhere for workers to live, or there were just other distractions for councils and others to deal with. So all those things have a huge impact on economic recovery. And so planning, recovery planning, and having someone in a role like that starts to look at things like what are the core drivers of your economy, and what are the interventions, large or small, that could help mitigate some of that and get the community back to where it was pre-flood. And I think the other key thing around recovery planning and doing it well is around that integration. So, you know, like I said before, it's easy to focus on infrastructure, you know, and absolutely flood protection and more resilient homes and building them in more sensible places. All of those things are absolutely critical. But recovery was more about than just the rebuild. It was around that integration, around that psychosocial stuff, the mental health, social services, you know, the housing, temporary and permanent housing, you know, and that took a lot longer than it needed to in the Buller context, simply because we were building the plane as we were flying it. And again, I think we did a pretty good job. We had some really good people stepped up to be our recovery managers and things, but they were having to forge those relationships as they were literally writing a recovery plan, and business continuity planning. So there's huge exposure, I believe, on the West Coast where, you know, so many of our businesses are really small and probably just don't have the resource to consider what a serious business continuity plan looks like. And I think that's the kind of thing that a recovery manager will start to socialize in the community, building knowledge in our business sector as well around what sort of things they need to consider in a business continuity plan. So recovery planning is woven into sort of all parts of emergency management, and if it's not done well, I think we just risk failure. I talked a little bit about relationships, and I think in Westport that was probably the biggest thing that I could see as a real improvement would have been those pre-established relationships, not only in our own communities but also outward to agencies, and having those key people that, you know, when you really need to pick up the phone, you know that they're going to answer and they're going to be helpful. And you know, we built really strong relationships, but it would have been probably, you know, 6 to 8 months quicker in terms of recovery if those if we already had those established relationships with the likes of the social service providers and into MB and others around what was available and what a recovery in terms of housing and the like might look like. So that can all be done pre-disaster, and that's exactly what a role like this is looking to lead. It's effectively leading I would imagine leading a sort of West Coast recovery planning that then filters down into each district and starts that sort of high level thinking around, you know, what are our vulnerabilities and how might we plug those gaps. So I think really that's it from me. I just wanted to sort of reiterate that I think that work could have been done a lot better in Buller had we been more prepared for that. I think the other thing to keep in mind is Buller was just Buller, and you guys are servicing the entire West Coast, and there are certainly scenarios such as AF8 that will be affecting all of our communities at the same time. And so we had, I guess, the luxury of bit of support from across the West Coast coming in to help us because we were the only one in trouble in that case. I hope you've from your prior knowledge and a little bit of chat today that you see that Westport's experience shows that disaster recovery planning is not a nice to have, it's essential, and it really affects our people, our economy and the identity. The Joint Committee approved the budget that included this new role, and that role requires additional funding. But again, I call upon you as councillors to, you know, to see the leadership in that space and keep that funding going, and it gets us West Coast Emergency Management as an organisation just one step closer to fulfilling not only our statutory obligations but the need that is evident in the community. Thank you. I'm certainly happy to take any questions if there is any.
Thanks, Jamie and Claire. Any questions of Jamie and Claire regarding that?
Not a question, more of a comment. Yeah, I totally agree with it. After living firsthand both events, it's not the actual, it's the after. It's the cleanup. It's massive, and it's still ongoing today, and it will be probably for another couple of years or so. Yeah, so yeah, totally recommend.
Yeah, just a comment further to that. You know, this council, there were 4 different faces around the table. Then in 22, middle of the year, they endorsed this process, and this is just a subsequent process on that. It's already been endorsed, and I support it because it's a mandatory requirement. It's not optional. Any one of us can have the option to vote against it, but you know, council's already effectively voted for it, and I'd support that.
Yep. Further comments, Alan?
Okay, I'll be voting against it. I've got concerns over the amount of money that's been funded by the ratepayers. I think we're up to 1.5 million a year. I've got serious concerns that money could be spent more efficiently. And I just don't want to keep chucking more money in. We really need to be looking at doing better with the money we've got.
Further comments?
Slightly disagree with that in terms of, we were a bit lucky in the Buller context that we actually got a really good recovery manager who actually was also a controller, and it's said to me the importance of getting somebody that the local community can have confidence in, because we get a lot of news where say, oh, they bug around and just do more bureaucracy, and bureaucracy stifles everything. The bloke that we had was really, really great. He had the confidence of the people and demonstrated to me that the incident usually only happens over 3 or 4 days if it's a flood, because then everybody runs on adrenaline for that time. But the hard work really starts afterwards, and the recovery manager that we had then showed that it can be done if you get the right person. So I think it's probably well spent money if we do that part dead right.
Right, well, I totally agree with the funding of it. I disagree with Councillor Birchfield. We've got a legislated function here. It was signed on 11th of May 2022 by you, Alan, to do this. Now, I attended the emergency management meeting on Friday, and the information provided, it's a shame it doesn't get out in the media, but I'll be trying to supply that to our local media here, because the information there is emergency fuel storage put in place. The training is phenomenal. What's happening in the community. Look, I know the last earthquake we had in Greymouth here, 1968. We're way overdue on the coast for a localised earthquake. We haven't had any floods for quite some time. The disaster's just around the corner. The AF8 was over 306 years or so since it last went off. We're sitting on a time bomb, and I don't think we can be prepared enough. The EM Emergency Management Group are doing fabulous work, and I know the Regional Council have to rate on behalf of the districts for that. That's an essential function, so I'll be moving it. So any other comments?
Just make the comment, we're always pushed for finance, and I understand, we've got things coming at us from every direction. To credit to Peter Miller and his team that he is chasing down money owed to councils, the debtors, the liabilities, and that's money that we could utilise if people pay their bills. It's part of the problem. We're covering it, and this is a must have. It's mandatory. Got no option.
All right. No further comments. I'll put the recommendation, and that is 1, receive the report. Note the responsibilities of the West Coast Regional Council or district councils to deliver emergency management activities as set out in the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Act 2002. And 3, agree to progress with the establishment of a welfare and recovery position with the West Coast Emergency Management. And I'm happy to move that.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor McIntyre. All in favour, say aye. Against? Recorded against. Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much, Jamie, for your presentation and clear. So
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Jamie.
Great work. Okay, on to the next agenda item, which is the 8.2 on page 51, is the draft annual plan 2025-2026. Welcome, Stuart, and I'll let you speak to this. I think it should be well read by councillors, so I think we know what we're here for.
Thank you, councillors, Mr. Chair. So we did talk about the draft annual plan at the last meeting, finished the 6th of May, and so we've actually agreed quite a lot of the direction already. One of the key points that was needing to be resolved, we've just talked about, Mr. Chair, which was the new welfare and recovery role. What I will do is go through the paper, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Very briefly.
Yep. Anytime, sure.
Thank you. So what I've done this year for the annual plan is to try and use language in a way that hopefully enables the community to understand where we're putting effort and the benefit of that effort to the community. When you look at the individual sections, for example, regional leadership, environmental science section, that it actually details why we put the effort in, I'm hoping, quite clear language. What I'm really keen on doing, Mr. Chair and councillors, is getting your feedback on whether that language is the right language, whether the images are really supporting some of that direction, and generally whether the presentation is supporting you to describe the work that council are doing to the people that you support. You'll also note that I need to work with the chair to finalise the message from the chair. Done some initial work, but I need to do quite a lot more work on that, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Fine.
The other element, of course, is the setting of rates for the year. Without the conversation we've just had on the proposed role, I can't really finish that. Now we've had that conversation, I can do some further work and actually start to put those numbers through in a finalised position to you. The information I've got in here right now is based on the conversation we had on the 6th of May. There are some tweaks I've noticed since I've had a look at it again. There's an odd little word that's in the wrong place. But what I will do is come back to you with every single change that I make and when we get together on the 24th. So turning on to the second side on this number 8. As I say, I've just heard that you agreed and including the new welfare and recovery role. So I'll incorporate that. Number 9, really keen, as I say, in getting your feedback in whether this is helping you understand and set that conversation going with. That's where I want to get to, Mr. Chair. Is there anything in particular you'd like me to discuss?
No, I think you've set it out really well, Stuart, and I'm grateful to the staff that have joined you in setting the annual plan out. I think the images show a lot of what we do well, and I think they're great. So, but I'm interested to hear from councillors' comments on this. Yep.
I think the images are really great for fast reading it, so you can really click through and just, that's what that means. Read through the actual writing and then flick to the image. It's just makes it a lot easier for me to quickly get through it and get the guts of it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor.
I agree with that.
Councillor York?
Page 77, it's very hazardous to have your coffee cup next to the computer on a photograph.
Yes, I saw that too.
It's spotty. Right, any questions or further comments? For Stuart. Look, I think it's pretty straightforward myself. We set up the long-term plan. We had 8 or 9 long meetings, 6 councillors attended, and we thrashed out what we needed to get this council back on track. I think what we're presented with now is exceptional accountability on the financials and where we are. Thanks, Peter Miller and all the team on that department that have gone forward. I know, and reading in the paper there recently, other council financials, they were stunned and don't know what happens. And I just believe we have got the information finally. It's different than what we were years ago. And I think it's a great report, and it gets back to what we set up in our long-term plan. It was a plan to get back into, it was decided by councillors that we could not keep running in a deficit. We were going to run into a brick wall and that we needed to get back into surplus. And we are on plan to get back in surplus as long as this council continues in the future to stick to the plan to get back into surplus by year 4. So this is year 2. So I think the plan's really good. And thank you, Daryl, and all the team, Stuart, and everyone that's put the input into this. Any further comments or questions?
Just a comment, really. Pretty much condone what you're saying there, because 6 months ago we had no idea what we were at financially.
All right, no further comments. I'll put the recommendation, and that is 1, that council receive the report. 2, that note the council commitments to being being made to the community in the draft annual plan 2025-2026. Note that the annual plan has been written to clearly explain the benefits the community receives from council delivering on its commitments. Note the message from the chair is a work in progress and not present this draft. Note that the setting of rates for the 25-26 financial year will occur after council have reviewed the attached draft iteration. 6, note that the financial information presented has been determined based on the direction from council from the meeting of the 6th of May 2025. 7, note the separate paper presented to council on the 3rd of June on the requirement for a new welfare and recovery role in emergency management, which has been accepted. And 8, agree on including the new welfare and recovery role in the management team and functional targeted rate requirement. 9, provide feedback, which we have in commentaries on the draft plan. So we've done that. So would someone like to move that? Councillor McIntyre, thank you. I'm happy to second that. All in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Councillor Birchfield. Yep. We'll record your vote. Yep. Right. Thank you very much, Stuart and staff for that presentation. We look forward to the meeting in June where we can adopt that plan.
Thank you. Do you know what the day is on 24th of June? Just
So Tuesday.
Tuesday, yep. Item 9, general business. Any general business council today?
Thank you.
None from you? None from anyone? Fabulous. Okay, we will.
Just a question.
Oh, certainly. Yep.
Peter,
Miller.
our rating district, prudent funds, how are they held?
How they're held. Well, not actually held, well, they're in our, if you want to know whether our balance sheet or you want to know whether we're actually holding on to all the cash that would exist in the prudent reserve.
Okay, have you still got them? Or have you spent them like the mining bond?
Spoke about that at the last meeting, but how it has happened. The mining bonds, remember, we've still got $1 million set aside for those bonds. You don't have the full 4.2, and you'll find the prudent reserve, as we did in the last meeting, have also been used as cash.
Thank you.
So there's nothing sitting inside for that.
Thank you.
And question through the chair, well, not a question, no, just for Peter Miller. So that's the same as what's been happening from the previous council, isn't it? That was brought in at that time, but yeah.
That's the message that we've been given to us.
Yeah. Darryl, do you want to speak on that?
Mr. Chairman, I absolutely want to confirm that it has been the policy and has been passed by previous councils, trienniums prior to this one, that mining bonds and prudent reserves for the rating schemes were treated as cash, operating cash. And as we've had deficits, they were used as operating cash for that. That doesn't mean to say that when the bonds are called upon or when prudent reserves are called upon by the rating schemes under this triennium of this council, that we have to actually then go and find that money and actually account for it. But I do want to confirm that was the financial position of previous councils to this triennium, and this council has put its mind to whether it wants to treat that differently and actually have those as ring-fenced accounts and not treat it as operating cash. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
But just on that score, this council, as with previous, we haven't done a U-turn. We've just carried on what's been going on. That's the way it's been. It's always been accountable because we've got X amount of millions in our investments anyway.
Yeah, the other thing we've done, that's through the chair, is we've put aside that $1 million for mining bonds.
Yeah.
We have previously put that aside. These are new bonds that we've been receiving, so we put that aside so that if there is a call, we actually do have some cash available. If it's more than that, we'll go and get a loan from LQ.
Through the chair, so the council in the past never done that. Is that right, Peter?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Just meant it's cash.
Any further general business? No further general business. Right. I move that we go into public excluded. And the recommendation is that public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely agenda items 11 to 13, all inclusive, and that the councillors and the relevant staff be able to.
Friday days.
Eh?
Friday days.
Okay,
Thanks,
all done. Seconded by Mark McIntyre. All in favour, say aye.
Yep.
Live again.
Yep.
Right, so we've just returned back into public after being in public excluded. And we just want to reiterate that motion that was moved regarding the Westport Rating District appointment of a community representative. And the recommendation was that council resolved to receive the report. Council noted the Westport Rating District Joint Committee terms of reference state that the community members are appointed by the Bulla District Council and West Coast Regional Council, and Bulla District Council approved Patrick Bradley on the 28th of May 2025, and that was also approved by our council and public excluded today. So the appointment is of Patrick Bradley as the new community representative to the Westport Rating District Joint Committee to join Jody Murray as the other representative. So,
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we could just take a quick action, just to put a quick press release out on that, especially so we can update the Westport community on who their new rep is. Thank you.
Great. Right, we'll take that as an action. So that's it. I'll actually close the meeting at 11:47 p.m.
Thanks.
Welcome everyone back to the council meeting of the RMC meeting of the 3rd of June. And we've done all the public part and we are now moving into public excluded. So I move the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceeding, mainly agenda items 11 to 13. And the relevant people that are required here can stay. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. All in favour? Right, that's carried. Stop the live streaming. Thanks to everyone for joining the council meeting and the Resource Management Committee meetings of today, the 3rd of June. We've just come out of public excluded on the Resource Management Committee, and we've done all the business on that. So I'm now going to move that we're going to conclude the meeting for the day. So thank you everyone for their